Good morning and welcome to another edition of That's What She Said. We are filming at the historic Virginia Theater downtown Champaign. We're so grateful to be here. I'm Jeanette Jerzyk. With me as always,
Carrie Rosso
and Carol Wackerlin.
And we have a very special show for you, which we say every week, but it's true. There are so many amazing stories to share, and today is no exception. As a lot of you may know, one of the core missions of That's What She Said is our mission trips to God's Littlest Angels Orphanage in Haiti. And that is a cause that is very near and dear to our hearts. But it's not just about the children, thousands of miles away. We are also big advocates for the children right here in our community. So today we'd like to introduce our very special guests from the Cunningham Children's Home in Urbana. Please welcome Ginger.
Hi.
Hi. And Charla.
Hi.
And we're going to let them tell you a little bit about who they are in this world and why they joined us today.
At Cunningham Children's Home, we say that hope begins here, and we hear a lot about that hope through the stories that we share. And I've been with the agency for a year and a half, and I just love being able to talk to people in the community who kind of know about Cunningham, but they really don't know all the programs and services that we have. And so I'm able just to interact with people and tell them more about who our kids are, how they got to us, and how they find hope at Cunningham.
And you do that in what role?
I do a lot with church and community relations. We are a mission and ministry of the United Methodist Women, and so a lot of times I share the stories about our kids with the different women's groups that meet throughout the state of Illinois. Sometimes we share messages on Sunday mornings. This morning I was at the Chamber, went to the First Friday Coffee and talked about our kids there. And it's a great time to talk about our kids because the holidays are coming up. And so, everyone wants to give back to the community. And so I talk about how they can help give back to our kids during Christmas.
But of all the places to work in Champaign, how did you end up at Cunningham?
Well, so I am a United Methodist person, so I've always known about Cunningham, but the fact that it's kind of a God story. I met Charla 5 years ago at Camp Tecumseh in Indiana. And at the time we were
not as a camper.
No, family camp. Family camp. We were with our families, and at the time we both had different careers. And just connected with her for 2 summers in a row. And then when I was ready for a job change, I looked and saw, wow, Cunningham has a position in church and community relations, and had remembered that Charla started working there. And so I emailed her and said, hey, I'm applying for this job at Cunningham. Can you tell me more about it? And by the way, what do you do there? And so she responded back right away, and she said, oh, yes, I encourage you. You should apply, and told me a little bit more about the position and interacting with the community members and things like that. And then she said, I'm the director of advancement. I'll be hiring the person for that position.
Oh, perfect.
So it was like...
It was awesome.
It was, yeah.
It sounds very much like it was meant to be.
It was networking, and I believe God was orchestrating that 5 years ago. I still had to go through the interview process, but it was really great news when I got a call from Charla.
It felt meant to be.
And asked, do you want to join the team?
So Charla, now that we know who you are at Cunningham, how did you get there, and what's important to you about being there?
It's a long story, but to start, I was at the University of Illinois working in fundraising. So my job really is to fill the gap at Cunningham between what the state and referring agencies will pay and the cost per kid, which is $36 per day per child right now. But before, I had interacted with Cunningham, really didn't have an understanding of the level of care that they provide, and I had, in sort of period of my life, University of Illinois working in fundraising. I had been involved supporting an orphanage in Nairobi, Kenya. And my daughter had decided to go to visit the orphanage, and I thought, well, I probably should go with her. I actually felt like God was calling me to do that. It was on the steps of the orphanage at Kenya where I started to say, wow, I wonder what the life of this child in my lap would look like if I was able to bring her back with me. And found out that you are not able to adopt from Kenya, and just started really having a conversation with God about what does that look like. And I really, not audible, but I just really felt in my heart that he was saying there are kids in your own community who can use that. Doesn't mean there's a need for both, and I still support Nairobi, but I came back 2 weeks later, got a call from Claudia Hill-Aramore, who had built the fundraising operation at Cunningham, and she said, we have this opening and we're looking, and it was just sort of this, all of my paths came together, and it's just a neat opportunity, and really it has been my heart's cry. You know, your work in Haiti, you know the needs that kids have, and here we have kids who have those same needs, and I'm able to really fulfill that and see lives changing, and it's amazing.
Now, for anyone who does not know that may be watching with us today, can you give us a brief description of what Cunningham Children's Home is and what services you provide?
Yeah, so we've been around for 121 years, which seems amazing. People don't realize that. Our goal in the beginning is still our goal today. We say to see every child thrive. That's our vision.
And we actually started as an orphanage.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Our referrals came from Champaign County.
And how long has it been since you were technically an orphanage?
I'm not sure when the transition happened. Sort of historically, in the 50s, we started to learn that a family structure is really the best structure for youth to grow up in. And so, out of that research, we built the cottages, which you have said you worked at one of the cottages, so that's pretty neat. And then in the closer to like the 80s, the foster care system became a big part of what we did. And so what happens now is that if a child is not able to be successful in a foster care environment or in their home environment, then they come into residential treatment. So our current facility was built in the early 2000s, but we've been doing sort of more treatment of youth who have severe emotional and behavioral issues. Our whole goal is to help them heal and find hope and be able to transition back into the community, because our community, we want them to be successful.
So I have an obvious financial question here. Maybe it's not so obvious. Does the state pay you for each child? And if not, or if they don't pay enough, like how much does it cost per day? And then who makes up the deficit if you don't get enough from the state?
We do, the state, well, we have referring agencies from different, so it might be Department of Children and Family Services, juvenile detention, sometimes it's an individual care grant through Human Services, so we do have pay for that. The gap is $36, I don't know the total cost, but the gap is $36 per day per child. So that's what we cover with private support. That pays for therapies, we have art, music, rec, all kinds of therapies that really unlock their healing, and some of the stories are really amazing. It allows them to do things like participate on a football team at a public high school, or be part of a cheer team, or go to church camp. So all these different opportunities that don't necessarily get paid by the state of Illinois.
And do you have a way, like if somebody watching today wants to sponsor a child for a camp, for instance, or something like that, is there something, a vehicle set up where they can sponsor a certain kid?
Not by name, because privacy and confidentiality is such a big part of it. And but in general with gifts, we tell lots of stories about the impact. So they will get to identify with a child, but we can't assign specific names.
Which our mission is exchanging stories. And when I first talked with Ginger, and when we were talking ahead of time, I think the stories that have come out of Cunningham Children's Home, they're just amazing. So, and I think sometimes people want to connect and they want to help, and those stories, I think, that's really what puts a face to it. Yeah. And it's a person that needs help. Do you have some stories you could share? I know you have many, but
so in our residential treatment program, we have 60 kids that live with us year round. And I particularly love the story about Christopher. So he lives in our residential program, and he had a couple nights, really rough nights in a row, where he was giving staff a really difficult time. And so Cindy, who is our director of our residential treatment, thought, well, maybe let me just give staff a night off. Let me give them a little bit of a break. And maybe he just needs some one-on-one attention. And so she spent a couple of evenings there just interacting with him, playing board games with him. On the third night, she said, hey, Christopher, it's Wacky Pajama Night, because she thought that would appeal to his DNA. He's 10. And boy, it did. He went back into his room. He found mismatching pajamas. He found a cape, vampire teeth. It must have been around Halloween where this happened. But he had 3 nights in a row where he had no outbursts. And so on that last night, he went into his room and got a picture of himself. We take school pictures. And he went in and he said to Cindy, will you put this picture of me on your wall? And Cindy said, sure, no problem. And she said, I kind of had an aha moment that Christopher doesn't really have contact with any of his biological family, but he considers Cindy family. And so it is like that. It's family. We really do, come around our kids and meet them where they are. And our staff does really amazing things to help them manage their emotional behaviors and their mental issues, to help them thrive and to help them develop coping mechanisms so they can be successful in public school and successful back in our communities.
I mean, do you help break the pattern? It seems to me if kids are coming out of foster care, out of homes that maybe aren't as attentive as they needed to be for that particular child, is there, do you see a change when they get individualized attention at Cunningham? Mm-hmm. How can you build into that and make that their new DNA?
Yes, there's one of the stories I love is a story about a young boy named Steve who he grew up in a home with a mother who was an addict, and it wasn't until age 5 that they pulled him from her care because he was just in constant chaos, and he went to live with his grandmother. So at age 10, his grandmother passed away, and he was without any family at that point. He went to his first foster home. He was so emotionally distraught and his behaviors were so out of control. He bounced through 7 different homes. Before he got to one home, they said, we're not going to give up on you, Steve, but you really need treatment that we can't provide. So Cunningham staff worked with that family, and Steve lived with us, and he regularly went for visits and came back, but they taught the family, hey, you know what? Steve's been through this sort of trauma, this circumstance in his life, so he may never act like you expect him to. When he responds, he may respond differently, and you need to understand why. But Steve, you also need to understand that at some point you need to be part of a family, and that's going to be healthy for you. And so this is how you need to respond. And so through what we call different things called theraplay, where he learns to just play and get his emotions out. And I always say sometimes it's just like unlocking that pain inside and letting it go. He learned a new way to be able to manage all of his emotions and behaviors. And the cool thing is that I think now it's been 2 years ago, Steve went home and was adopted by that family. That is an amazing story because for him, we don't know what his life would have been like, but here was a family who was willing to just come around him and staff who truly cared and poured into him and helped him just learn, hey, that's not going to work and you need to learn a different way. But hey, family, here's also a different way to help understand Steve a little bit better.
So can you talk to us a little bit about services and what's available at Cunningham? Because I don't really know a lot about Cunningham other than the fact that it used to be an orphanage and now it's a residential home.
Sure.
But I don't know more than that. So
well, last year we provided care to 350 kids, and so that was either through our residential treatment program, through foster care, or also through our schools. So on campus in Urbana, we have 2 schools. One is called Circle Academy, and that is actually a school that's designed for kids who live at home, but they are just not feeling academic success in their own school districts. And the school districts recognize that. They have special education plans, and they just know that these students need additional support. So when they come to Circle Academy, they take a yellow school bus, and we probably have, Charla, do you think 9 different school districts represented?
Yes.
And those are kids who are from 1st grade all the way up to 12th grade. But what's unique is that they continue to learn what's being taught in their own school districts. So they're keeping up with the curriculum, but they're at the same time they're developing coping mechanisms to help them with their ADHD or their autism or whatever umbrella is in their special education plan.
Is the goal again to integrate them back into the school system?
Yeah, they may stay with us a semester, a year, a couple years, but ultimately it's to go back to public school.
Awesome.
I just met the grandmother of someone yesterday. We were out speaking and she came up to me and she said, my grandson was there for 3 years and now he's back in school, and just beaming that, because families come to us, by the time they get to us, they don't know if their child will be able to be successful, but we're able to come around them and give them the skills they need, and now he's successful in public schools.
And I love hearing those stories because I can imagine that when you meet families, when your paths cross, often it's the most stressful time in their journey. And so to hear those loop back paths, you were talking about a brother and a sister, I think that came back to visit.
Yes, and they were there in the 30s, late 30s.
Wait, a brother and a sister
A brother
who
and a
lived-
sister.
Wow.
who lived
in the orphanage or at the home.
They did. They lived in one of our older. I don't even know that it's there anymore, or probably repurposed. But
In the
just
1930s.
this September, they came back and they got out of the car. And at first, we thought there was someone donating something. So they get out of the car, but all of a sudden, tears just start streaming down their face. It was the first time they'd stepped foot back on campus. And the neat thing about it is, no matter the span, it really feels like family. If you ever have the chance to come to the campus, there's just something about the sense of family there. So when we found out that they had been there and that they had just reunited themselves, we have a room with old photos. They went in and spent at least an hour pouring through. They found a picture of because there were 4 siblings that actually came to Cunningham. They had a circumstance where a parent couldn't take care of them anymore, and you know how difficult that must have been. Left them there for a period of time. Some of the siblings reintegrated back into the family, but the youngest, who actually was one of those who showed back on campus, had been adopted. She was 3 and didn't even know about the brother and other siblings. Through her genealogy project, they came back together, decided to take a trip together to Cunningham, and it was their first chance to get back to campus. And this story is also on our website, so if anybody wanted to go and read it with pictures, it's amazing. CunninghamHome.org. But to see those photos and hear them say, this was the place that really made a difference for me. You know, it was I knew somebody cared about me, even though we were going through something that was so difficult. And
I have a question about volunteering. It sounds to me like you've got kids with special needs and you must have a staff that's really well equipped to handle that. But what about other people? I mean, we know that Jeanette has a story that she can share with us, so I'd love to hear that. But what do people do if they want to volunteer? And how did you end up at Cunningham?
So I was looking for a summer job after I graduated from U of I, and a friend of mine worked there and recommended me. And I don't know if you still do, but at the time, this was the summer of 1996. I was a substitute, like a cover for the permanent staff that's in the cottages. And so I was most of the time in the same cottage. So I got to know those kids pretty well that summer. And it was literally one summer, a few months. And I got to know the boys and girls who were living in that cottage. And because I had a college degree, you know, I was trained enough. I went through like one day of training, and I was called a mental health professional. I mean, they didn't throw any of the tough cases my way, but it was really just about, you know, enjoying the kids. And they were on summer break, and we had a lot of fun. And there was one young girl, this is gonna be really hard, who I really got along with very well that summer. And I think maybe I understood her in a way that some of the counselors or other people there didn't. And we spent the summer watching movies and Grease and doing some dramatic play, and
Which you're really into.
maybe I might be possible. And what's even more fascinating is that, you know, many years later, thanks to the invention of Facebook and social media, she actually found me on Facebook as an adult. And I had only known her for that summer, but she remembered me and told me that getting to know me that summer made a difference in her life.
And you know, that's the power of relationships. That's what you guys talk about and promote. I mean, when we get to know each other and help each other, even for a short period of time, it's amazing what a difference it will make in a life. You never know. And I love that. I love the fact that you were willing to share of yourself, even at a vulnerable place, to help someone heal. And she latched onto that, and that's what she needed. She hangs on to it still. And that's where hope, that's why we say hope begins here. For our kids, but also for staff members who come through. We give out t-shirts every year, and everybody loves to wear their Hope Begins Here t-shirt because we believe it. We know.
It obviously affected you.
Yes.
I have a Cunningham Children's Home coffee mug in my kitchen that I got that summer, and every year, whenever I clean out my cabinets, that one stays.
Wow.
It's there from
And it
1996.
changes.
It's not going anywhere. That was an important summer for me too.
We always say you can't unsee it. You know, once we've been to Haiti, that curtain is pulled back and you can't unsee it. And it also, when you come home, it's the local and the global. When you come home, suddenly you start looking around, and suddenly Cunningham, that's always been there, but now
You see it with the
now
different
you
lens.
see it,
Don't
and
you?
it's a very different perspective.
Yeah.
So you asked about volunteer opportunities. So there's a lot of volunteer opportunities around our 2 events. We have the Festival of Quilts in April every year, so it takes over 100 volunteers to help us manage that 2-day event. And
So do you sell quilts, homemade?
This is kind of a cool tradition that started years ago, that every child who comes to Cunningham gets a handmade quilt to put on their bed. And a lot of those quilts were first made by United Methodist women. But individuals and quilting groups all have heard that story now, so we get quilt drop-offs all the time.
My next door neighbor's working on a quilt for Cunningham.
Oh, yay!
Now I understand it. I didn't understand it. I wonder why she's doing that.
And so for the last 13 years, our Spiritual Life Center kind of transforms into this magical, vibrant display of color all along the hallways. And there are quilts for show, but there are also quilts to buy. And
Good to know.
It's really a great opportunity to actually come on campus, do some good work as far as volunteering, helping with the quilts, there's lots of things. There's a patchwork cafe, which is lunch. There's a gift shop. There are tours.
Just that time
just
in
those
April.
2 days. Well, we give tours whenever anyone wants to come out.
That's good to know too.
Yes. We'll even host an organization that wants to have a meeting and then maybe learn more about Cunningham. We have a facility that's big enough to host some groups. So it's always any way we can kind of open our doors and help people understand the transition that we've gone through, but the importance in our community, because it's really critical that we continue to serve these kids.
Well, and serving these kiddos, one of the things right now coming up is, because I think often people just don't have the vehicle. They think about it, or they hear it and they think, oh, I would love to help, and then we move on with our day. So coming up for the holidays, how could people get involved?
Christmas is so much fun.
It is.
We've already started our Christmas wish list. So Christmas started for us before Halloween. So every kid gets an opportunity to fill out a wish list. Any child who is served by us, no matter how they come into us, they get a chance to fill out a wish list. And we turn in the wish list. We have it within our Spiritual Life Center. We have a room that we just turn into a store, basically. So people are awesome about getting groups together, or maybe families or individuals, and they donate gifts from our wish list. So you can either I have a general wish list that you can follow and choose something that we know every kid will want, or you can ask for individual names that way. We also have a tree in our lobby so people can come in and grab name tags.
So what's the biggest item on the list this year?
Oh, I don't know. One year, this is a great story.
Yeah.
One year, one of our young men wanted Carhartts. And that's a high price tag, but he's only like this big. But the reason is when he, this one might catch me, but when he came into us, he had been through such trauma in his life, some abuse that really no child should have to go through. He came in with behaviors that were extreme. His language was horrible. That's what he had heard and been yelled at, and he just continued that behavior. Sometimes it takes a while for our kids to sort of unlock. And for him, he continued to destroy walls and things. I mean, that's sort of what we live with, which is maybe difficult for people to understand. It's not what we accept, but we accept the kids where they are and we move them to a better place. And in his case, he just couldn't get that under control until one day the maintenance guy showed up. And he had this moment where he realized that they were cleaning up after him, but he really liked these people, so he was causing them to have to leave other things to come take care of something he had caused. And in that moment, he realized the love and grace that they were offering to him, because never did they get mad at him, never did they just said, this is what we're going to do for you. And so when in the midst of that conversation, he realized, I don't want to do this anymore. And it hasn't completely subsided, but he built this relationship with the maintenance guys and actually wrote a poem saying, I want to become like you.
And did he wear Carhartts?
Yes, that's why he asked for Carhartts.
He goes around before the guys mow on the property. He'll go around with one of our teachers and pick up sticks so that they don't hit sticks. So he's very much into, looking like our maintenance guys as much as possible. And those, it's not just direct care staff. The whole aura of Cunningham is about what do we do? Kids' needs first. That's what we've said, and how do we help this young person who just needs to know they're loved, that they've been created for a reason, and let's help you figure out what that looks like and what success can look like for you.
Does the Methodist Church continue to support Cunningham?
Yes, the United Methodist Women and then the United Methodist Church both. Sometimes there'll be mission teams in the churches, or just individuals, families who believe in our mission of seeing that every child thrives. And so, but the United Methodist Women have really been the backbone of helping bridge the gap that Charla was talking about. We hear stories from children whose mothers were, well, they're adult children now, but they remember their moms and their grandmothers canning vegetables and leaving half back for the family and taking the rest to the kids at Cunningham, because they would harvest their own meals and their own gardening. But today it looks really different. A lot of our United Methodist Women are part of what we call a guardian parent giving program, and it's a sustaining program where they pledge either a monthly amount or a yearly amount, and they know that they're helping bridge that gap between what the state will cover and what the actual cost of care is.
So so it's $36 a day difference
Per
that's,
child.
That's the deficit per child times $350.
Yes. So I mean, our charitable giving every year is just over $1 million.
Wow.
Incredible.
I have to follow up though on the story about the young man with the Carhartt, because he got his Carhartts and he proudly wears them. Rumor has it on his wish list this year is a power washer.
Oh no!
He will not get it, but
probably won't get that.
I don't know that I want to put it in his hands, but
Wow!
isn't that fun?
We always talk about that one of the phrases we love is living a life of service and striving to do that. And you guys, this is your job, but you are clearly living a life of service, and we are so grateful that you're doing that, and we're grateful that you came to share these
And
stories with us.
let's just make sure we have all the information for this Christmas wish list project.
Yes.
So what can the community do? What's the deadline? Where do they go? Give us like all the details.
scoop.
Okay. Do you want me to do that?
Sure,
Okay.
you oversee it. So
Okay. All right. So on our website, cunninghamhope.org, there on our front page is a button where you can download the Christmas wish list. And so it's a 2-pager. It's a front and back. And we just ask that the gifts be returned to Cunningham by December 1st. And the reason why we ask it so early is because we actually have a volunteer opportunity starting that following week where people come in and wrap. So if wrapping is your thing and you love tape and bows,
I love it.
and listening to Christmas music and being with around 10 to 15 other people, you can wrap till your heart's content. So that's an opportunity, is by December 1st, just have those gifts brought to us between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday.
Wonderful.
And then you can come back the next week and wrap.
I have some shopping to do. So on that note, thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you Ginger and Charla for coming and sharing these stories so that we can really understand how the kids at Cunningham are affected on a daily basis. And we're glad you joined us today. Thank you to the Virginia Theater for having us. Thank you to Columbia Street Roastery for giving us some coffee. Thank you to 5 Foot Productions for making us look awesome each and every week.